Ladies and gentlemen, I have no idea how we got this far, but we're on episode 10 of the Snobcast. And this month, I am so excited because once again, joining me is my much smarter and more handsome co-host, Shay Simone. Say hello.
Hi, everyone. How are you all doing today? I hope you're all as sane as I am.
Which is not sane at all, for the record. And joining us as our special guest this month, I could not be any more thrilled or happy to have with me from the Giallo of the Month Club podcast. She's smarter than me, definitely. Dianna Koch. Say hi.
Hi, I'm also more handsome than you. So
that is barely true because I'm pretty handsome.
Barely. Thank you for having me.
She is more handsome than me.
We're going to treat our guests now, Will.
Listen, I should stop inviting people who are better looking than me onto the podcast. That's what I need to stop doing.
Spicy. It's very spicy in here.
It's well, anytime Shay's here, it's going to be spicy. She's a spicy meatball. That's why I have her around.
Oh, that's very true. I mean, look how I'm dressed right now.
I don't know about all that. I did want to make a shout out, and I wanted to let everybody know that this episode and every episode going forward is dedicated to the memory of my mother, who just passed away on the 4th. I love you, Mom. You're the best. And I miss you. This month, I am absolutely thrilled that we have Dianna here because her specialty, as her podcast would indicate, is Giallo films. And for those who are uncultured swines, Dianna, could you tell them what a Giallo film is?
Absolutely. Giallo, but we'll just say Giallo because we're not Italian. It's a cycle of stylish Italian crime films that peaked in the late 1970s. The actual word Giallo means yellow in Italian, and it refers to the yellow covers of the detective novels which were adapted into the first films.
I did not know that. So
yeah, so the filmatic Giallo is based on literary Giallo, and the cover of those are yellow. Dating back to 1929, these novels were part of a series associated with mystery, which brings us to the Giallo film. The novels in the series were by the likes of like Agatha Christie, Raymond Chandler, and Edgar Wallace. A Giallo film it's often cited as a 20th century Italian murder mystery film, as these novels were murder mysteries. The films contain elements from both the horror and thriller genre, and some would argue that very simple description does not solidify the genre. There are many traits that make a film a Giallo film.
I like it.
In the film, yeah. So it's very divisive. We'll get into that probably later in the episode because this background on Zoom right now might be triggering my Giallo senses. In Italy, in the film industry, any genre had a very limited shelf life. So the classic Giallo grew from gothic horror and like proto-Giallo thrillers from the early 60s. The evolution took place as the political climate of Italy was experiencing some trouble. So you'll kind of see a shift within like the early 60s films, which are more like police procedural types, to as you get into like the early 70s, they get more stylish as the political climate evens out, and then into the 80s they get like a little bit more bloodier. The movies became just basically like more unsettled, and the filmmakers try to outdo one another's kill scenes and gore effects as the years went on, and they kind of put characters and plots on the back burner. At the height of the Giallo cycle, or you could call it a filone, like filone is also, it's like an Italian word for subgenre. It kind of encapsulates I wouldn't even say it's subgenre. It's like genre times 10 because it can include so many different types of films. But the height of the Giallo filone occurred between 1968 and 1978. So like late 60s, late 70s. And then 1971 to 1973 were particularly successful. There were 65 Giallo films that came out between that 2-year span. Most from prominent filmmakers like Dario Argento, Mario Bava, and Lucio Fulci. They had films that were in other genres as well, but some of the more notable Giallo films, you have like Bird with a Crystal Plumage, that's like Profondo Rosso, like Deep Red. Those are very popular Giallo films by Dario Argento. So those are like starter films if you're looking to get into the genre. These films gave Giallo its basic shape as an outsider witnesses some crime, usually a murder. Sometimes the murder is successful, sometimes it isn't. And it's something mostly usually happens in a European city. And Giallo continued into the 80s, and then it inspired like the slasher films that we know and love today. So it went less mystery as the years went on and more just straight slashers. And there's a division between the Giallo films called, which I love this division. It's M Giallo or F Giallo, which is male fronted Giallo or female fronted Giallo. Either for the M Giallo, it's the male lead has more of like a police procedural type, and it's a little bit more stoic and serious, and more of a mystery or like a detective film. And then the F Giallo films usually surround our female protagonist, reflecting on her fragile mental state, which those can be a little problematic because it's mostly a damsel in distress, and I don't love that. I some of them are like a strong female type, but some of them are a little bit like, woe is me. And I'm like, girl, get a backbone.
Stop screaming, start running.
Yeah, get your stuff together. And as I mentioned, the Giallo films, they do include some repeated elements like throughout, and that's what makes the genre. There's red herrings, visiting an eerie town or a town that you're not from as an outsider, shots of eyeballs. That's one of my favorite, like cinematography wise, shots of eyes. I love that one. J&B whiskey. If you see a J&B whiskey bottle, which is just a bottle, it's like a greenish bottle of whiskey with a yellowish cover or yellowish label. That's a Giallo, or that's a nod to a Giallo if you see it outside of the genre. There's of course black leather gloves, crazy zooms, which I love. And then one of my favorites is The Power of Women, which is what I just mentioned. Like I love when it's like a strong female protagonist. Usually those, when it's a F Giallo and it's more of a strong female protagonist, those have more of a story behind them, or like more of something to say than just a damsel in distress.
I love it. I love it. You gave us
Shall I continue?
No, you gave us the good old fashioned education there, and I'm glad you did, because what we're gonna do today, guys, is for our audience, we're gonna pick a couple of Giallo films a piece, discuss them, and discuss their places in the hierarchy of everything that Dianna just said there, because there's a lot to digest there, and that genre I could not have explained that any better than you did there. So what I'm gonna do, is I'm gonna
can I just elaborate just a tad more just before we get into these lists, because this is going to be divisive, and I love that we're doing this. To pin down like the precise nature of a Giallo film is extremely difficult. I personally do not include any film that the killer is supernatural, like a witch to say. So that means to me like Dario Argento's Suspiria is not a Giallo film, which again, it's maybe a controversial statement as much as I love that film, but I stick to my Suspiria is not Giallo. But I did bring two films with me that I think are great examples of a blueprint Giallo that was like a groundbreaking film that really like set the stage, and then also a modern Giallo. And I'm really, really excited to talk about these movies. Well, then let's get to it. Give us your first choice. What was it? All right. So my first choice, I'll start with this blueprint one of mine. It's Mario Bava's Blood and Black Lace from 1964. It's from very early on in the Giallo cycle. Have either one of you seen it? Absolutely not. Okay. Well, it's now streaming on Criterion Channel and Shudder, so you can watch it on Criterion or Shudder. This is a groundbreaking film within the subgenre. It's directed by Mario Bava, which you would recognize from Italian horror and other films within just the horror arena, House Cemetery, etc. And I'm sorry, not Horseback, that's Fulci, sorry. But Blood and Black Lace includes themes of vanity, vice, and of course, murder. It mixes beauty and danger in a very radical way. So it's a murder mystery, but it's not boring. It's beautiful to look at. The story surrounds the brutal murders of a Roman fashion house's models. So there's models getting off left and right, and it's committed by a mass killer in a desperate attempt to obtain a scandal revealing diary. It's often cited as the blueprint for Giallo films. It introduced a number of elements that became representative within the genre, like a cloaked killer dressed with black gloves, a trench coat, hat, which you will see in probably all of the movies that we're recommending today. And the film takes a voyeuristic approach to murder and fashion. This is apparent when it comes to its cast. They're very shiny and beautiful, high society on the outside, but underneath everyone has secrets and they're not who they seem. So it's a really good mystery. The cinematography, set design, costuming are to die for. Bava uses dramatically lit sets and the color red as foreshadowing for blood and death that's to come. And I think that's so smart. And it's also just gorgeous. Like, it's one of the most beautiful films that I've ever seen. And if you love Suspiria, while it's not Giallo, like, you will die, not literally, hopefully, for the set designs in this film. Like, the colors, the lighting, it's just so gorgeous. And it's the perfect counterpoint between like glamour and the grotesque. Like, it has beautiful visuals, but like kills are really gnarly. The mystery is gnarly. To like elaborate within the Giallo subgenre, like, a lot of the movies took, their take on horror was stylish and bold to the point of being surreal. Like, you could be within a dream and not even realize it. Every woman is glamorous, every man is daring and boldly dressed. And another frequent element is that every American is like a famous author or fashion designer or like something creative. Like, I don't know, in Italy, I guess they just assumed that everyone in America just kind of had a very creative job. I don't know where that came from, but that's cool. And since the cast is so extensive with men and women, it's not an F Giallo or an M Giallo. There's many different perspectives in this one, which I like because it helps with the red herring aspect where there's not really a specific lead and you're, suspecting everyone. And Italian directors like Bava, they weren't afraid to mix like high class, low brow within their films. And I just love this one because there's a lot of fashion as well, which my episode where I reviewed it was all about fashion and horror. And I think it's just a cool film. And again, the tropes within Blood and Black Lace introduced so many classic elements. It was released in 1964, and then from like 1964 to 1984, you had 20 years of movies trying to replicate the look and style and kills that Mario Bava implemented in this one. So that's my first pick. Thank you for listening to my TED Talk.
I like it. I would assume that a movie called Blood and Black Lace would be fashionable. And
yes,
I gotta tell you, I love a fashionable film. I love movies with great fashion design and sharply dressed men and gorgeously dressed women, and that's always going to get me. So that's going to be on my list from Shudder. So because I do have Shudder, and if you guys don't have Shudder, get it, because it's really good if you like horror and the adjacent genres, including Giallo. Jay, what you got for me on this movie? What are you thinking?
I think it sounds absolutely fantastic. And how you describe it, although Giallo is a very, almost, it feels very culturally specific because it is Italian, that's where it originated, but how you describe it, and I'm trying to work it out in my brain, how you're describing the kind of the sources and the origins of the genre itself. It feels like Giallo is to Italian cinema and Italian filmmaking as like noir was for American cinema and American filmmaking and that kind of thing. But and you just have to admire. That's definitely the main thing about Giallo that attracts people. I think that's the very first thing. It's just like all the things that are going on visually when it comes to the fashion, when it comes to all the artistic departments. They have to bring it up to like 200% as far as the visual factor goes. But where my brain is also just trying to make the connection is your statement on Giallo being separated from perhaps like the dark fantasy that it kind of started deriving and stuff. Would you say that you kind of separate the two, Dianna, because Giallo is basing it more off of like the source materials, as in the books and stuff, and more of like the murder mysteries with the like the fantastical elements kind of as a result after the fact? Is that where that comes from?
Yeah, so it's tough. I struggle with that as like a so-called expert of the genre, which I'm not. Like my podcast started as just an experiment to myself where I loved Suspiria. It's my second favorite film of all time, and I've seen like all of these really like Blood and Black Lace and all these really notable Giallo films. But I wanted to go back to like the source material. I wanted to go back to like just like the detective ones and even the novels. So each episode is usually a film that I have not seen before. And I try to again stay away from like supernatural because, as you mentioned, like the source material is like these mystery thrillers, which you don't have Agatha Christie like writing about fantastical witches at a dance school, you know. So it's kind of like that's how I judge it, is more of like the source material. I would say like it's less dreamlike or fantastical. I would say that's more of like, you could just call it maybe a supernatural Giallo. That's what sometimes I call that. Like Malignant is, people are like, that's Giallo. It's a Giallo. I'm like, it's supernatural. So it's you know, on the fence. Like, yeah, it has some aspects of it.
From Giallo making.
And I also like another criteria that I try to like a little box that I like to tick is that if you know the killer off the bat, like right away, then there's no mystery. So it's not a Giallo. Like Stage Fright, which is, I don't know if you've seen that one, but it's I believe it was in the 80s. I reviewed it with Dylan, who William knows.
Lovely fellow.
It's an awesome slasher film, but you know who the killer is from the beginning, so there's no mystery. Like, you know that it's like an escaped like mental patient. So that's another criteria, is where a lot of the films that I'll suggest to people, like, I like to keep that mystery. And while Blood and Black Lace like is gorgeous, and I would, you know, put the visuals like right in line with something from Dario Argento, like that's pretty like that's the extent of it. Is it's just a gorgeous murder mystery, and that's how I don't know, but everyone has their own judgment, but that's how I judge it, is like it's based on these novels, murder mystery grounded in reality. That's how I judge it.
I love that. I love that. Shay, what is your first pick?
So unlike Dianna, I am not a Giallo expert. I do love slasher films. I love horror films, but as a proud American, I am not incredibly cultured when it comes to foreign cinema, especially 20th century, mid 20th century foreign cinema. So this was definitely like a treat and kind of just like my surface level education when it comes to Giallo. And it's also been like such a pleasure, like, because we're very familiar with modern cinema, but like finding and picking up the pieces from like different modern films and putting them together and realizing where those influences come from was definitely exciting. But unfortunately, all my choices were supernatural Giallo films. So I'm just gonna roll with it.
Let's do it.
I actually have a companion to help me also introduce this first film. It is not what you would think. I don't think it would ever be anyone's first choice to talk about when it comes to this genre, but I just happened upon it. So we're just gonna go with it. This is my little friend Ginger. She's a Japanese wasp, and she is here to help me explain why I chose this movie. And the movie is Phenomena, are also called Creeper by Dario Argento.
That's
19
divisive. I like it.
Yes, which is exactly why I chose it. But unlike the dignified reasons that you chose your film, Dianna, I chose my film for completely opposite reasons. I love Dario Argento as a filmmaker. I love what he's done for cinema, but this movie is completely bananas. I expect you've seen it, Dianna.
Yeah, it's a good one. Like I don't recommend it when someone asks for a Giallo film, but I will recommend it if they ask for an Italian horror film. Absolutely. Or like a Italian horror directed film.
Yes, it's it's a very entertaining film. Again, like Suspiria, Dario kind of play it like he brings in like an American person in order to stand as like the American everyman. Which I definitely feel like it helps with the exposure of the film. A young Jennifer Connelly, a year before filming Labyrinth, actually stars in the movie. I have no idea how old she is. She's like 15, 14. She's just a baby in this. And it kind of, I don't know. I don't know if it inspired these films, but it reminded me of films such as Carrie, Firestarter, Willard. And the reason why that is that it's centered around this young woman who gets stationed in Italy because she's staying at a boarding school or something. And then there are murders happening, which might be able to help fit the bill as a Giallo film, because although there are supernatural events, there also aren't. And just a lot of stuff happens. Dario was just like, I like seeing murder, so I'm just going to throw everything in there. As you described, Dianna, this also feels like a complete fever dream. And basically it's about this young woman who just loves insects, and she can communicate with them telepathically to the point of being able to summon as many insects as she pleases, which for whatever reason she seems to forget in the middle of the movie. But, we're just having fun. There's a chimpanzee that also stars in the movie. A lot of people have stated that the chimpanzee is probably the best performance in the movie, which I would also agree with. Jennifer Connelly has not yet reached the peak of her craft, which is still very entertaining to see. There's a lot of bugs, a lot of maggots. It's incredibly camp, but you still get the Giallo, Dario Argento trademarks. A lot of faces being thrown into windows. Glass shattering and falling, lots of blood at random aspects in the movie, lots of violence. It's just a really fun, really campy whodunit that still incorporates. I believe this came quite a bit, like a couple years after Suspiria, and it surprised me by how different it was, just because it feels a lot like watching Sleepaway Camp, and it's still this very random whodunit, but I was hooting and hollering during the entire time watching this movie. It's a lot of fun. Like Dianna said, I definitely wouldn't recommend this as anyone's first Giallo film. Now I'm thinking, I don't know if it necessarily counts as like a purely Giallo film, but it was entertaining. Dario Argento was great in it. You got 80s Jennifer Connelly and Connelly, however you say your last name. And you got a bunch of bugs.
Connelly.
Yeah, she's playing with giant fake bumblebees and bugs and flies, and she's just staring at them, and just the horrible ADR is also a consistent characteristic in his films, which it's funny. Me and my partner were watching what was it, Deep Red, the other night, and we were very confused because of the ADR. So that's also another little joy that comes with watching an Argento film in the 80s and 70s.
I totally agree.
And that is yes.
I
agree. It's all part.
I've seen this one, Shay.
You've seen it?
I have seen this one, and I did not like it. It
was not for me.
It's campy. It's campy.
It's pure camp. I mean,
if you know would be a good double feature with that. So it's technically I wouldn't say it's a Giallo. I would say it's more of like a whodunit. I don't know, which actually the last episode of Giallo of the Month Club, my theme was whodunit. It's just the very origin of like Agatha Christie novels, whodunit, which then led to Giallo novels, which led to the films. Tenebrae, which is personally, that's my favorite Giallo. It's not my second pick on this episode, but I wanted to shout out Tenebrae, which came out 3 years before the movie that you recommended, and I think they would both be a good double feature because Tenebrae is like a very like slashery 80s Giallo, and it's fun, and also your pick was fun as well.
Yes. Can you describe Tenebrae for people who don't?
So it's about this writer who has these murders surrounding him, and it's actually based on like a real life event that Argento had a stalker, and it's about just like this writer's public image. I kind of don't want to give away, I don't know, with any like murder mystery I don't want to give too much details, but there's a bunch of great iconic kills. There's like an arm slicing and then just blood, which was actually, I was struggling with my background before this episode, so I don't have a background right now, but my usual Zoom background is the blood splattered wall from Tenebrae. It's just, the kills are so good, and Argento used used Tenebrae to address his like own public image in the 80s, where people were saying that he's extremely misogynistic, and they called him like a criminal and a murderer. So he kind of included all of those aspects into Tenebrae, and it's like metafiction, and I like that aspect of it as well.
I'm actually gonna stop you on that point because I want to discuss that particular issue as well as a couple other issues with this genre in a little bit after we're done with our picks, because there's so much to unpack there that I want to unpack it separately. My first pick, which is also on Shudder, is called What Have You Done to Solange from 1972, directed by Massimo Dallamano. This is a movie
It's a rough one.
What's that? It's a rough one.
That's a rough one.
Yeah, it is. It's about a teacher who basically has to prove his innocence, but doesn't want to prove his innocence because he may be connected to murders at this school. There's a lot of murder, and the reason it's rough is because it doesn't pull punches on the violence or on the nudity. There's a lot of boobs and a lot of murder. And I can tell you this. I saw this one when I was about, I'd say 20 years old. I saw this one. And so I rewatched it on Shudder, and I was like, oh dear Jesus, why did I like this? And then as the movie unfolded and started to kind of unravel itself, I'm like, oh, okay, this is actually kind of smarter than most of these movies in regards to, it holds its mystery a little bit close. You kind of, you think maybe the guy did what he's, claiming to be innocent of doing. And the film is weird. Have you guys seen it? Have you seen it, Shay?
I've never even heard of that.
Diana, hit us with it.
I've seen it. So What Have You Done to Solange? Oh God, what year was that? 72. Yeah, 72. So it's like murders are happening in a Catholic school, which makes it kind of extra icky because these girls are clearly underage. And there's like some, not just the murders, that's whatever, if they're underage, not like I'm condoning murdering children or anything, but like some of the other icky things that happen. So it's like a Catholic girls' school in London. Several students are murdered. Then a professor this isn't really a spoiler because you kind of give away a little bit, romantically involved with one of the students, so he doesn't want that to come out, so he's being like a little sketchy with trying to hide that. And it's well known, that one actually is like well known in like two subgenres. So it's one in Jolly from the 70s, and then also it's exploitation, like it's sleazy, it's exploitative, like it's very well known in like the exploitation genre. Listener warning, it's there's themes of abortion, underage sex, it's yeah, I mean, it comes with some trigger warnings.
And I mentioned this one first because like I said, there's a lot of icky stuff that happens in some of these films, and I wanted to unpack that separately. But I picked this one so I could highlight that these films have some portions of them that, in the modern sense, would get the entire film, the entire director, and most of the cast canceled. And that's what I think is so interesting is in 72 they just didn't even give two fucks about it. They're just like, yeah, whatever, put it out.
The structure of that film is very interesting because you have like the first half of the film, which focuses on like the protagonist, which is the guy that's having an affair. Like it's like an M Giallo because the protagonist is a male, but also like you don't really root for him because he's having an affair with his student. But anyway, the first half is is like focusing on the affair, the protagonist and his affair, and then like the second, and then there's like melodrama into like the second, like the midsection, and then the second half is like once some element is fixed, and then he's trying to like solve the murder. So it's the structure of that film is very interesting because it's very like melodramatic the first half, and then the second half is like detective, like he's on like a mission.
And would you say that this one fits nice and tight into that just regular Giallo subgenre?
Yeah, I would say it's more of like, it's like an exploitation Giallo because it is, I mean, to be quite frank, a lot of Giallo films are boring because they have the same structure. So I like when it's a little different. And like this one I didn't like the icky parts of it, but this one kept you engaged. So yeah, I would say it fits in. It's one of the more popular ones. I don't recommend it just because it is a little like sleazy and could be triggering to some people.
It's very gross.
Yeah.
It is on Shudder though, along with a lot of other gross shit. So if you guys want to watch it, it's on there. Yeah, I can't say I recommend it. It is one that I've seen that I would say if you want to get like a glimpse into what the genre is and mixed with exploitation, this will do the job.
It does have a great score though by Ennio Morricone, you based on your reactions, you know who that is.
Oh, yeah.
For the listener, iconic Italian film composer. Like he's for, I mean, like Quentin Tarantino films is like what you would probably know him from if you haven't seen any Giallo or like Jolly, which is the plural, any Jolly. But yeah, Ennio Morricone. So I mean, that's worth a watch just for the score,
or worth a listen.
Yeah, or worth a listen. Yes.
Yes, yeah. I love that. Now,
yeah, it's very few composers who I could say that I actively listen to the soundtrack before I watch the movie, and Ennio Morricone is definitely that composer for me.
Yeah,
there's actually a vinyl record that came out. It was sometimes within the last 2 years. I specifically remember it was during pandemic times, that it's Ennio Morricone, like Giallo film scores. And the cover of the record is yellow and looks like a Giallo novel. So for anyone interested in some Giallo music, that's a good one to seek out because it looks like a Giallo novel and it's Ennio Morricone.
I love that choice. I think that's really, really fucking cool. Diana, you've given us so much, and we're going to ask you to give us one more thing, and that is your second pick for this particular podcast.
All right. This is absolutely like a delight for me. I love sharing. So my second pick, I said it was a good example of a modern Giallo, which is a little bit of a tease because it is a modern film, but it's actually set back in 1979. It is Knife Plus Heart, which is a French Giallo film.
I almost
from
picked
2018.
it.
I'm glad you didn't. I'm glad you didn't. I can talk about it.
Go for it. It's an amazing film though.
Yeah. So Knife Plus Heart, it was directed by Jan Gonzalez. It's a horror thriller set in summer of 1979. There's a Paris-based filmmaker named Anne, who is the producer of third-rate gay porn. After her editor, I love that. Like even that, I'm like, I'm there. That's my jam. After her editor and lover leaves her, she tries to win her back by shooting her most ambitious film with her trusted sidekick Archibald, who is my favorite character. He's the best. Anne's cast of actors begin to be stalked and murdered one by one by a serial killer who covers his face with a black leather hood. And the cops, of course, should have mentioned this earlier as another Giallo trope. The cops are completely useless. They're always useless. Useless cops. That's like another box. So Anne decides to lead an investigation of her own.
Fantastic movie.
Yeah. So speaking of like a sleazy tone, it has more of a campy sleazy tone versus What Have You Done to Solange? I find that specific sleazy tone to be very true to the time period of the 70s, especially considering it takes place in the porn industry. For some, like, they might find the campy tone to be a turnoff, but I love that part of this movie. The cinematography is amazing. It was shot on 35 millimeter film. It's lush, it's gritty. There's pops of red and blue. Oh, it's like such a nod to all of the Giallo films that I actually adore from the actual 70s. And the soundtrack by M83 has the perfect sense of playfulness that fits this style of film. It's a really great soundtrack. I would just recommend it even if you're not like watching the film. It's by M83.
And if you guys aren't familiar with M83, they are French DJs. They're famous for their song. Don't remember the fucking title, but it goes. Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah. I think it's the director's brother also is part of M83.
He has utilized him in soundtracks in films before, so that would be no surprise to me at all.
Yeah, I think there's like a sibling or like a family something going on there. But I mean, speaking of just like bonds and personality, I think one of the aspects of Knife Plus Heart that I really like that is not in a lot of other Giallo films, which I mentioned, could be boring or a little bit bland. This one tends to be very celebratory of its characters, and they're outlandish, and each one of them is so different, and they're all memorable. And some other Giallo, it just tends to be very narratively focused and lacking additional plot threads or personality when it comes to the characters. Like you're like, oh, that person got killed, I don't really care about them. But in Knife Plus Heart, like you genuinely get to care about the characters. And that's like one of the aspects of this film that like I absolutely adore, and that's why I recommend it. And I like to describe Knife Plus Heart as a postmodern queer fever dream, because again, you have this brilliant cinematography, this great music, and some scenes that are totally just outlandish, and you're like, is this a dream? Like, what is happening in this movie? I love it. It's fantastic. Knife Plus Heart, it's streaming on Shudder and Canopy. Watch it.
Yeah, actually, and I almost get, it's really funny because we're definitely on the same wavelength, but luckily I have backups. But even though it is a French film, I definitely felt like I owed it a mention for sure, because it like you say, it definitely wears all of its influences on its sleeve. But versus films like there every now and then in Giallo films there is like queerness involved in some way, not necessarily being antagonized, but just in a way where it's just kind of almost fleeting, or it's used as a plot mechanism. But as you say in Knife and Heart, the characters are all there, and it's just like such a wonderful ensemble, and you're actually rooting for characters. Like I think that's very rare also for a Giallo film, for you to be like, no, please don't murder them, I don't want them to go yet. But it's still like incredibly creative. It's such a feast for the eyes. The performances, the lead actress is Vanessa, and I'm gonna screw up her last name because it's French, but Vanessa Paradis or something like that. She gives like an amazing performance as this spunky kind of just like she almost kind of reminds me of Leslie Knope from Parks and Recreation, but just the pornographer version of her. So she just goes out on her own. She kind of spirals into this madness following her investigation. The slasher aspect, you have the whodunit aspect, you have the blood, you have the appreciation of filmmaking itself, even within how the porn industry, or even at least like her little branch of pornography is displayed. You're almost just like, wow, that actually looks like a lot of fun, and just how the film wraps itself up. Just like in every aspect, it just hits the mark artistically. And there are some scenes where it still does bring itself back to the Giallo influences and the Giallo roots, where it's just like, oh, I don't know if I wanted to see that, but I saw it, and it gives you a nice kind of almost bittersweet, but also like really delicious balance of just everything that you can get from a Giallo film, but in the modern day. So I'm really happy that you spoke on that film, because I have a great love for it, and it's just one of those random films that I came across, and I'm so glad I did. I had no idea what it was, but piecing together the history behind it, it's a really great pulpy film. It's a very pulpy movie.
Yeah.
I love that pick, Dan. And I think I thought that film was really good when I first saw it. And I really think that the French, especially in recent times, as far as the horror genre goes, they've just been doing all kind of different stuff and making some really interesting things. And this is definitely one of them. And I mean, whether they're making gore fests, this type of like Giallo inspiredness, or heavy thrillers like Revenge, they just tend to understand tension, in their films. And even this one, there's a little bit of tension there. And like Shay was mentioning, you don't want the characters to go, but you understand the nature of what the movie is, and you're like, oh god damn it, I'm frustrated now. And you get frustrated with the movie, and that's the best part about watching something like this, is that you get frustrated. And I love it. This is why she's here, guys, because she's way better at picking these movies than I would have been.
I would akin like there's like one kill that's like embedded in my brain forever, that I'm like, oh, that's totally like inspired by like a Lucio Fulci like eye slicing close up. Like it's gonna trauma. You're never gonna unsee it, but you gotta watch this movie. And there's also the French, man. They're so smart. There's this one scene, it's kind of early on, where our main character, our protagonist, is she's in a police precinct, and it cuts from a police precinct to the same scene being shot in the porno, and it's so smart and quick that you don't really realize it, and it's just smart. And I love Knife Plus Heart so much.
I think I screamed when I saw that, because you have to give a movie props that can display very, very serious, horrible things happening, but still bring in that camp where it still is able to find humor in itself like that. Yeah.
I love that. I want to make 2 points real quick. The first one is, all eye slicing scenes owe themselves to Salvador Dali's Un Chien Andalou anyway, because that's the original. That's the OG eye slice scene. And 2, we're shooting this on March 9th, this particular podcast. There is a film coming out on the 15th that we may be discussing after we're done here, that is of a similar ilk to Knife Plus Heart, in regards to the fact that it deals with pornography.
Ooh, a little X for you?
Just a couple of X-rated options here. We'll talk about that in a minute. But in regards to that, what is your second pick, Shay? What you got for me?
Damn. Okay. So I was actually going to choose Knife Plus Heart, but thankfully, because I am who I am, I brought up a backup. And I'm just going to go for it, because this one, it's not going to be me speaking on the film as much as I want to hear other people's takes on it, because this film was incredibly divisive, I think, when it came out, especially for me. I do not remember if I even wrote the review on it, but it's an incredibly recent film. And I want to talk about it specifically in contrast to the original. And it is the Suspiria remake. I'm very interested in hearing what you guys have to say about it. But kicking it off, in contrast to the original Dario Argento film, it's a completely different take, using the same sort of plot elements, the same sort of iterations of the characters, but twisting them and contriving them into what is even more of a really messed up dark fantasy situation. So it's still witches, it's still ritual, and we get probably some of the goriest, most grueling, hard to watch scenes of that sort of era. Some of the most violent imagery that you could ever subject yourself to in a theater with other people, at least at the time. It's featuring like how you had a fantastic composer, Goblin, for the original Suspiria. We instead have Tom York, who takes an also completely different take on how to score this film, but also like completely nails it, in my opinion. Will, I know you don't like Radiohead, but that's too bad, so sad, because I listen to that soundtrack also on repeat. But,
I do not.
Yeah, stylistically, even the performances have incredible range, and I wouldn't necessarily even say versatility, but it's definitely trying to I don't know, enact something. And it's just overall a very confusing and disorienting film, while the original, its source material, was very stylized and very camp and very much more of a straightforward horror film. And I have a lot of different opinions on it, but mostly I want to hear your guys' opinions on it, especially yours, Deanna, seeing that it's pretty much the most, other than Knife Plus Heart, it's pretty much the most recent iteration or addition to the Giallo kind of grouping there.
And so I not a fan of New Suspiria.
Please tell why.
Not a fan. I mean, it's too long. It could be 40 minutes shorter, or you could just go without like the Tilda Swinton dress as a dude storyline.
Mm-hmm.
Get rid of that, and I would probably love that movie.
Mm-hmm.
I think just all of like the Berlin Wall and the dude stuff, not for me. And this has like nothing to do with me being like such a lover of OG Suspiria. Because I try to have an open mind. I loved Call Me by Your Name. Like, I'm into it. I'm a Dakota Johnson fan. I do really enjoy like that third act when things pop off, and
right.
the gore is great, but overall it just didn't do much for it. Was just, I don't know, it didn't do much for me. I would say it's actually even further from a Giallo than OG Suspiria. It's even further. It's just in a different category. Like that's all. And I can see why some people like it. It just wasn't for me, and it didn't have I actually just wish it just wasn't called Suspiria. Like, I just wish it was its totally own thing, and then I would probably like it.
Wow. Well,
I like that. So I want to start by saying Luca Guadagnino is such a great visual director. He's so good at making things look pretty. And that's what he did that right in the Suspiria remake. He definitely made it look pretty. And I love Dakota Johnson. She's in probably my favorite film of 2022 so far, which is called Cha Cha Real Smooth, guys. You guys should check that one out when it comes out. And when you combine the two, you would think you'd make this unflappable thing. But let me tell you, let me start with this. I don't like the score for that movie.
Ooh,
I don't.
It's amazing.
But I don't like Radiohead either. Radiohead can go jump off a cliff. They make me. I call them radio nod my head because they make me want to fall asleep.
Okay.
You already know this shit. The Suspiria remake is way too fucking long. Why is that thing almost 3 hours? I like what you said there, Diana. I think that you're right when you say you could cut out the Tilda Swinton stuff. I just think you should just trim 40 minutes anywhere. Trim 35, 40 minutes anywhere. And, it'll still make just as much sense as it did end up making sense. You know what I mean? but don't take out most anything out of that third act. You're right. That is as it's supposed to be. That's the best part of the movie. That's a movie that is saved by its third act for me. It would have been like a D plus or a C minus. The third act makes it like a C plus or a B minus for me.
Yes.
That's what I think.
Yeah.
So to bring it all together, I've had such a strange, it's one of those movies where I've had such a strange relationship, like kind of love-hate relationship, because we all feel it. There's an amazing, fantastic movie in there somewhere. But yeah, I completely agree with you guys in that I think honestly they could have shaved a whole hour off of it. And I think it's not just a duration thing. It's definitely a thing where the director, he reminds me a lot of, and I hope no one takes offense to this. If you do, honestly, I don't care. But he reminds me a lot of Denis Villeneuve. Sorry if I messed up his name, but he's also a fantastic visual director who just takes all these ideas but throws so much in there that it becomes incredibly indulgent. So for the Suspiria remake, I think honestly it could have, because it's about witches. It's got plenty of gore. It's beautifully scored, in my opinion. The performances are all pretty fantastic. Honestly, like I don't know if my vision was bad that day or what, but honestly, it went totally over my head that Tilda Swinton was playing that old dude. I was just like, why does the old dude have to do with anything? Why is he here? Why is there a tiny little old German man just like in the movie randomly? It turns out they like Tilda Swinton just wanted to play an old little German man. That's fine. But definitely from the very beginning, from the very moment the film started, you have this beautiful score that starts over all this imagery that's thrown at you. And then on top of it, they decided to make the very specific editing choice to put this very grotesque, very distracting, loud snoring right on top of it. So as much as it is like, it could have been a pretty, like much more polished film, I think it was just going too far into the director's self-indulgence. I feel like he's a fantastic director, but he should not edit his own films. And I feel like there's a lot of other indulgent directors that have the same issue, especially when they're as entrenched in Hollywood as they are. I think from Call Me by Your Name, I've also seen certain criticisms about like how that film was edited in certain scenes and stuff. I feel like Suspiria just takes that issue and is just completely ruined by it. And I would love to see the opposite of a director's cut. You know, I need to see someone completely re-edit the movie, make it just 90 minutes, you know, put all that pulp in there, center it more on Dakota Johnson, even more than it already is. And then I think you go from a D plus to an A minus movie, you know. But it's a film that makes me very sad. And it's very separate. We're kind of straying away from the Giallo topic now, but yeah, it's a movie that I think about a lot because it makes me upset that I feel like it's something that I should have loved and something that I could easily just resort back to all the time, and it has so many elements working for it, but it's just completely kind of like drenched in the director's ego. And I think that's the problem there, which I think in a way also kind of brings it back to directors in general decide to show and what not to show as far as like editing, duration, and taboo subjects go, including in the Giallo genre, you know, what to show or what not to show, especially when they're trying to work against censorship and conservative mindset and all that. But yeah, thank you for validating my feelings on that.
I love it.
I love it. I'm in the same ballpark as you, where I'm like, I wish I loved that movie. Like I would love to have loved it. But next time I think that Guadagnino needs to just give me like the cut, and then I'll just make some edits, and then it'll be perfect.
I would love to see what you would make out of that. That would be an A plus movie right there.
Let's get it. Let's get the Dianna cut right now. Let's get it.
Yes.
I would love to see that. So I guess that makes it my turn. I want to start by saying my other film is also on Shudder, but Shay, do you know what I saw was on Shudder when I was looking through there?
Do tell.
A film we talked about a few podcasts ago, Seder.
Oh, I'm gonna name drop that movie. The one of the best movies of the year that absolutely no one saw.
I didn't see it. I want to see it.
I
will watch it on Shudder.
It is so good.
It's very good.
It's amazing.
I actually finally watched it, Shay. I agree with your review. So I agree with what you said. Now, while I was looking in there, I was also in the section labeled S, and I saw a film that is more an homage to the Giallo, and it is a French-Belgian film from 2013 called The Strange Color of Your Body's Tears.
Ooh, that is another one that I wish that I loved, but go ahead.
I didn't say I loved it. I said I saw it. This one here,
I like that.
Yes, see, that's the thing. This one here is about a man trying to, basically, it's very simple. It's a very simple storyline, as most Giallos are. A man trying to find his wife. There you go. Shit happens. I mean, what else is there to say? It's directed by Hélène Cartier and Bruno Forzani. I think I said her last name right. Cartier? Yeah, probably. My French accent is so legit, you know?
Ooh, another French one. I like it.
Definitely. It's French-Belgian, and so there is hints of Flemish in it as well.
Yeah.
I can't understand a goddamn thing they say anyway, so doesn't really matter.
It's the filmmakers, they made oh my gosh, why am I blanking on this? Let the Corpses Tan, which played at like Fantastic Fest a few years ago, and then it was like doing its film, like a film festival cycle for like 2 years. I love that movie. And they also did a Mirror, which is also a Giallo film. But let's talk about Strange Colors.
The best thing about this movie isn't the movie itself, it's actually the poster. The poster is fucking phenomenal. If you guys have not seen the poster for this movie, it is fucking phenomenal. And I want it hung in my wall because it's so nice. This particular film, I can't say that I loved it. I just found it to be a little bit too, I would say, straightforward and not much of a surprise as to what happens in the movie. There was not enough suspense, and a lot of the scenes that should have been held just a slight bit longer were cut off or cut to or cut from, and that's just bad direction. And I thought with a little bit tighter direction, this thing could have probably been a little bit better. But that's just me. You see it.
So I wouldn't even say direction. I would say more of a script, more of a screenplay.
Yeah, because that's a big issue too.
Yeah, I mean, this is a total like art house film. The visuals are so good. It's a gore. I mean, you know, if you're a Suspiria fan or a Blood and Black Lace fan, like this one, the visuals are very much inspired by those films. There's a ton of like neon lights and shadows and just very beautiful setting and cinematography. But as visually stunning as it is, like it doesn't really add up to much. There's not much of a plot thread, like stuff doesn't add up. I would suggest this one for Giallo enthusiasts only. So if you've gone through like the entire catalog of Giallo and you're like, oh, I don't have anything else to watch, or I want to watch something that's like very different, watch Strange Color of Your Body's Tears. Do not make that one of your first films.
Yeah, there's also some homages to other Giallo in regards to the soundtrack.
Yeah.
Like they're using 2 or 3 different other pieces of music. There's even a Marconi piece in there. And it's a good soundtrack, and I think that the soundtrack is pretty good. I don't know that the soundtrack meshes well enough with the movie itself, but it's
I mean, you're completely right. Like there's Giallo nods everywhere, like taken from films from like as far back from like 69. There's like So Sweet So Perverse, Black Belly of the Tarantula, Short Night of Glass Dolls, Eyeball. There's this movie called The Killer Nun. Like, yes, they took some good songs from other movies and put in this one, but it doesn't always mesh, but it's nice to listen to.
Yes. Yeah. The soundtrack for this movie is much more of a banger than the movie itself is. So I definitely would have people. I recommend you seek out the soundtrack for sure because it's such a good listen. But yeah, the movie struggles. It's a little bit boring, and you know, I just couldn't find myself up to finishing it.
I would suggest their other two films. Amir's another Giallo type film, but it has a little bit more substance. Then Let the Corpses Tan is more of a exploitation Western. Not Giallo, but it has a cool setting, like on an ocean side cliff, and there's like shootouts and gold and cool shots. I don't know. I really like that movie. That was on my top 10 list. I don't know, whatever year it came out. It's really weird because I saw it like 2 years before it actually like came out, so I don't even know what year.
2017.
There you go. maybe
official year.
I might have seen it. Okay, it was probably on my 2019 list because I think that's when it like was released. But yeah, I know some people that like love art house films that really like that one. So if that's your thing, sure.
I struggle with them because there was a few, like there's that one Bliss that came out a few years ago that I fucking hated.
That's what I that was a very divisive movie also, which as far as what I saw and what I heard from you, Will, it was like what you guys are saying about this movie, style over substance, correct?
Wait, Joe, what's his name? Joe, what's
Joe?
Is that the one I'm thinking of?
Yeah, you are. Yeah.
Okay.
I think you were sitting with me to see that one. I think you were with me.
Probably.
When we saw that.
I mean, it was fine. It was fine.
It was not fine. It was awful. It was awful. I much preferred the Mickey Reese film that you and I saw together. That was much better.
Oh my gosh, why am I blanking on that?
Like The Night of the Hunter or something like that.
Yeah, Night of the Hunter. There you go.
Yeah,
gosh, that one also had a very long festival run.
Yeah, it just came out last year.
Like 2 years.
Yeah, it came out
right,
last
but
year.
we saw it like 2 years ago.
Yeah,
amazing.
It was good. I didn't like his last film, but it was good.
Yeah, I like that one. That was cool.
Yeah, see, and that's the fun thing about these festivals. Sometimes they're hit or miss, and sometimes you see stuff, and then like 8,000 years later, it comes out. You're like, hey, I remember that. That actually siphons into our next subject so perfectly.
Perfect.
Because have you ever seen a trailer for a movie, or you saw a movie at a festival and you're like, where the hell did that movie even go? And it either never comes out or all of a sudden it's on like Showtime and you're like, when the hell was that in the theater? If that's happened to you guys, that's what we're going to talk about right now. And I only gave them a bit of time to find a choice for this. But of course, as usual, being a gentleman, we're going to start with our guest who also happens to be a lady. Dianna, what you got?
So mine is a big dumb space movie that I saw the trailer for before seeing Scream 2022. Moonfall, I think is its name. Did that come out?
It did.
Roland Emmerich movie?
Yes, it came out
okay.
The same week as Jackass last month.
Well, I saw Jackass.
Yeah, I like that one.
I saw the trailer before Scream. It was like, wow, look at this movie. And then I saw on like film Twitter people, reviewers asking when the embargo was up and such, but I never heard that anyone actually saw the movie. So did it come out? I guess same weekend as Jackass.
It did, and it's not good.
Okay.
I remember seeing like just a little sprinkling of advertising for it, but the Giovanni Ribibski looking dude who's a little bigger with the glasses, and then that's about it. And I keep forgetting about that movie, but I've been seeing the trailer for quite a bit. It's been making like a theatrical trailer spot here and there, but
I called it Big Dumb Space Movie, but also like stuff is happening on Earth. I'm not sure if there's aliens. I'm not sure if it's a weather related film. I just am not sure what's going on, and I haven't seen it, so I could not tell you.
Allow me. So the Giovanni Ribisi looking fellow she's talking to is John Bradley from Game of Thrones.
Yes.
And Moonfall is about a force of nature has knocked the moon off of its axis, and it no longer rotates around the Earth and is instead hurling towards it. It's Roland Emmerich. Don't think too hard on it, Dan. You're gonna hurt yourself.
Yeah, but this cast, man, you got like Halle Berry,
yep,
Patrick Wilson, Game of Thrones guy. Come on, man.
Michael Pena.
So much money was made on the film, and that drives me insane. Do you know how many other movies we could have made with the budget for this one?
Yeah.
It's a Roland Emmerich movie. I think it's, definitely keeping in mind who the director is. I think that's the kind of movie you can definitely expect, but how you describe it, Will, I have a story off the top of my head that could possibly fill that void of what the story may not have able to satisfy. And that's it's not a newer release, but it just got recently released in the US, which is Junji Ito's Remina, about a planet who starts attacking the Earth. So I think that's the closest thing that could kind of satisfy that, if you're looking for any kind of that large scale planet stuff.
Yeah, just watch anything other than Moonfall. Yeah.
Wait, how about you guys? What have you forgot about?
What you got to?
Oh my god. Oh, me? Okay. For me, it's mostly just because, considering the times and what the film industry has had to go through the last couple of years, which that's crazy that I've had to say. It's been a couple of years. So there have been a couple movies now where I've been looking forward to them ever since I was 19, 20, and I'm a jaded 22-year-old now. And I've talked about these movies before, actually. I specifically remember one of these movies, the first movie I'm going to mention, talking about it on one of our older episodes. And it's probably been a year since that episode, at least. And it's been delayed. There is a release date, I believe, but it's the Guillermo del Toro produced film Antlers, which I've been waiting for forever to see, and I don't even know if it's going to be worth it at this point. But
I saw that.
It came out already
somewhere.
It's on HBO.
It's like HBO, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I saw it on HBO. Hey, what if the monster was trauma all along?
Wait, what?
The Babadook, huh?
Yeah. So I think that was mostly just, it was all Antlers. That was the one movie that I was waiting for years and years, and got delayed and delayed. So I guess I'll have to stream it now. I was looking forward to seeing it in theaters, but I don't know. But other than that, the French Dispatch, I know it already got released, but it was such a soft, quiet release that I actually completely forgot that it got released at all. And I was looking so forward to it.
You didn't miss anything.
Also on HBO.
It is.
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing. And it's really kind of sad that, these movies had so much hype behind them when they started the marketing tour and all that. And now I haven't heard anyone talk about the French Dispatch, if at all positively. So there's also that one. There was a smaller film called The Protege that I was kind of looking forward to seeing. And then I was in Target the other day and I saw that they had already released the DVD for it, which wasn't Samuel L. Jackson or someone was in that. And I was like, ooh, that looks like a fun little action thriller.
Yeah, like any movies that came out in the theater within the last 2 years had like just some of them, not any, but some of them had just like a very quick like theatrical run and then just got put out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say, Shay, it is kind of disappointing that the Scott Cooper movie about trauma is better than the Wes Anderson movie in general.
I like the Léa Seydoux portion.
I did for two reasons, left and right.
Yeah. Great.
Léa and Seydoux.
Speaking of that, it's March is Women's History Month.
Yes, it is.
Before you go to your last pick, I had some Giallo films that I wanted to recommend for International Women's Month.
Yes, please.
Yeah. So these are my 3 favorite top female-led Giallo films for this, celebrate this month. First up, we have All the Colors of the Dark from 1972. It's a psychedelic Giallo, a little satanic. loose. I call it psychedelic Giallo because it's not straightforward, but it stars Giallo queen, like one of the most gorgeous women you will ever see in your life, Edwidge Finnick, brunette, angular eyebrows, eyeliner, hottie. She's awesome. It's by Sergio Martino, who directed Torso, Strange Vices, Mrs. Ward. He's kind of like a Giallo staple, but also like an Italian horror staple. Yes, All the Colors of the Dark, amazing film. Second up is Perfume of the Lady in Black from 1974. This stars a blonde Giallo queen who is great at being having a fragile psyche. It's Mimsy Farmer. She's really great at playing unbalanced. This is like a total psychological thriller, woman in peril. It's a cool one. And then The Psychic from 1977, which is Lucio Fulci directed. It's a really cool plot device that our lead protagonist can see into the future. She sees this murder happen, but she doesn't know who, what, when, where, why it's happening. Tad supernatural with that kind of psychic aspect, but that's a really good one. And Fulci, I misquoted earlier saying Bava made House by Cemetery, but Fulci did House by Cemetery, The Beyond, Zombie, and another Giallo film that I would recommend called Don't Torture a Duckling. So I mean, these filmmakers and like these 3 female-led Giallo I would recommend. And happy Women's History Month, everyone.
That's a perfect segue, because before I get to my last pick, I'm gonna play a 30-second or 1-minute snippet of my latest interview with the director of an amazing women's-led short film called Radical Honesty that's premiering tomorrow at the South by Southwest Film Festival. I got to talk with director Bianca Poletti and writer-actress Allison Goldfarb.
I mean, it's kind of a simple premise. It's a date between 2 people meeting on a dating app, but it's kind of exploring this idea of wanting to do relationships in a different way, and kind of using people who may like use this language of liberation for means of manipulation to get what they want, rather than a genuine desire to really try something radical and new.
All right.
Yay!
Now that we got that out of the way, after you heard a little bit of the words from those lovely ladies, we're going to get to the last pick. And this is the movie that sparked my topic of this. I was thinking back in the day, because I'm a little bit older of a gentleman. Back in the day, I went to the movie theater and I saw a movie, and I don't remember what movie it was, but a trailer played before it. This was I think it was 2006. I want to say 2005. I'm going to get the information up here because, as usual, I am the most prepared person. Yes, it was in 2005. I saw a trailer for a movie called In the Mix. And I was like, wow, that's interesting. Usher's in a movie and he's playing a DJ. I never saw this movie get released in a theater. And now, apparently, it's been out. You can watch it on Stars. It's been on everything. And the main reason I never saw it come out in theaters is because it's a pile of shit.
Never even heard of it.
Yeah, apparently this is a thing. I guess Chaz Palminteri's in it. I don't know how the hell this happened. But this movie came out and is said to have been a one-dimensional romantic comedy that feels like an old-fashioned vehicle picture. Or as they like to put it, right in my wheelhouse. Sadly, it's not in my wheelhouse. I watched it just to make sure that the movie was actually real, and it's terrible. No one go see it. Even if you like Usher and think he's amazing. And this is right off the heels of his Confessions album, which was a huge album in 2004, 2005. It's awful. Good God, Usher cannot act. Everything is bad. I want to like drown myself after watching it. Yeah, it sucks. But that gets that out of the way.
IMDb.
What's that?
2.9 on IMDb.
I didn't even know that. That's awful. That's awful.
That's higher than I would expect.
Yeah. What's the Rotten Tomatoes score on that bad boy, Shay?
Wait, is it IMDb? So it's out of 10?
Yeah.
Never mind. I was thinking Letterboxd.
Oh, yeah.
Which is out of 5.
Out of 5.
I was like, a 2.9. That's almost a 3 out of 5.
That's pretty good.
So Metascore, it has a Metascore of 31. Let me look up what it has on Rotten Tomatoes.
Give me that RT. Because the funny thing is we talked about Rotten Tomato scores last month, and all those movies deserved higher ones. This one probably is too high.
Let's see. Okay.
In the meantime, I would like to say that as soon as we find out the score, we're going to talk about some of the more nefarious angles that the Giallo genre has tended to have in it. And then there was another thing I wanted to discuss with you a little bit stretch out a little bit with you. And that is, did you get that score?
I got that score.
What is it?
So 50% audience score, which is interesting, but the tomato meter says 13%.
Ooh, that's higher than I thought.
1.8 on Letterboxd.
Ooh, stinky. It's stinky. I like it.
That's pretty rock.
You guys should go see the new Jackass movie instead. It's way better.
Oh my gosh, it's so fun. I watched it like 3 times.
It's so fun.
Yes.
It's so fun. It's so funny. Our review will be out for that as soon as I finish all the damn Sundance reviews that I have to still do in South by Southwest. In between all that, I got to do the actual movies that I watched. And yeah, Jackass, it's so fucking good. I loved it. I enjoyed it.
We needed another Jackass movie in these times.
Absolutely needed a new Jackass movie, Shay. That's completely correct. I want to say, like I was saying, one of the things with these Giallo films is they have some more nefarious angles to them. They have some things that happen in them that have occurred. And one thing I wanted to discuss with you, Diana, is aren't a lot of the Giallo films part of the video nasties?
So I can't really name drop any names offhand. I mean, I would say, I don't know, because I really haven't seen any that would be besides like What Have You Done to Solange, that would be considered more like exploitative. Like I kind of try to avoid those if I can. I'm actually very interested in that, and that might be like a topic on a next episode of Giallo of the Month Club, is like video nasties and Giallo. You
may have to invite me for that episode, since it was my suggestion.
Yeah, I'm making a little note of that now. I'm very interested. And as I mentioned at the top of the episode, when I started the podcast, it was more like, growing up, I like watched horror films from a young age, and then I like would go to Blockbuster and be like very attracted to these films that would be maybe part of video nasties, and that led me to European horror, and that led me to the exploration of Giallo. So I haven't even really explored that aspect, but I am looking forward to that.
Look at us just vibing, just giving each other ideas. This is how this should work, guys. Now, and there's a lot of themes too in the Giallos that are controversial, much like that's why I brought up the Solange film, because a lot of those themes are really controversial and a lot of them are really disgusting. Do you find that to be a prevalent trope in the Giallo genre?
Yeah, I mean, one of the most off-putting tropes that I personally see in these films is the murder of animals. As an animal lover, I see a lot of dog or cat killings, and I always, for every episode, I do a trigger warning, because even though maybe there might be one dog murder, I like to let people know in case they're very sensitive to that. Yeah, I see it all the time. I mean, of course, most of these films are directed by white-ish Italian men. So they're from the 70s. So there's a lot of different opinions on women's rights and just idolizing the female body and so on and so forth. So yeah, I do see that is extremely, that's a very much common theme throughout these films. I mean, one of the elements that I usually shout out at the beginning of each episode, like when I'm doing a little like rundown of like the classic tropes or elements, is gratuitous nudity, and it's typically 99% of the time women. Like you don't see men, except for there is a fantastic black comedy Giallo called The Editor, which is kind of a little bit of a spoof on Giallo, but it's fantastic. It came out just a few years ago, and there's a lot of male frontal in that one, and that is amazing.
Yes, it's a schlong fest. I am.
Yeah, the editor's really good. Before you watch the editor, though, you should watch The Strange Vice of Mrs. Ward, because they're starring Edwidge Fenwick, who she's a Giallo queen, because there are scenes that are shot for shot in the editor that are taken from Strange Vice Mrs. Ward. There's some other scenes as well, but there's like very notable scenes that very interesting to see them just like redone in more of like a comedic tone.
I love it. I love that you mentioned that. I also wanted to mention just how heavy the male gaze is, because these are all directed by men. There's just this heavy, violent stream of just very, I guess you would say, sort of, what is the word I'm looking for? I forgot what I was going to say. I was going to say something in regards to, basically, these are a bunch of Neanderthals, you know?
Yeah, I mean, there's filmmakers that sometimes maybe use their position of authority for maybe not the best reasons, or they just want to see some boobs in a movie and they make that movie. But there are some Giallo films that like aren't focused on sexualizing women, like Knife Part. Like that one that's not the female gaze in that one. Like that's like the queer gaze, and it's amazing. But then you get films like Short Night of Glass Doll, which is our protagonist. It's a male protagonist in that film, and it's from a point of view of he's paralyzed and he looks like he's dead, and he's like in like a morgue type situation, and he's going back through different scenarios trying to figure out how he got there, essentially. And that one is like a mystery that does not have like any of like the male gaze. Messiah of Evil, that's more like a Lovecraftian Giallo. Red Queen Kills 7 Times, it's more of like a fable type Giallo. I specifically try, because there is this reoccurrence of male gaze and like the same type of storyline and just like boobs for boobs sake, I try to seek out these like different ones. And like I'm lucky that like I'm like 50-50 on on my watching. But yeah, I think it just has to do with the times. I mean, I think it has to do with the time period. A lot of I mean, even with like the gore, people, directors were trying to like one up each other. I don't know for a fact, but maybe they're trying to one up each other and like the sleaziness and like the nudity.
I agree. As far as looking back historically, even at our own cinematic history in the US, there is a lot of there's an interesting dynamic in seeing filmmakers really trying to confront audiences with just everything and anything. So yeah, I'm with you, Diana. Like I see like both sides of it, where it's either like balancing the line between exploitative or expressive, because what I find a lot of the times in Giallo is being in between, being like, oh, this person is really pretty and really cool and expressive, this woman per se, and then they're in this like fantastic set and it's just very stylistically strong, and it's almost like the artistic appreciation of violence. Like I said, Dario loves bashing people into windows, but just seeing glass falling, like glass everywhere on a person's body is there's something very like beautiful about that, and just like his use of like obnoxiously like incredibly fake blood, but still just like the stark contrast of it on the person is very interesting, versus when it is exploitative. So there's definitely the yin and the yang of it. Not to also mention that also it being Women's History Month, it's important to realize how much women shape the horror genre in general. And I think that's also a really important perspective to keep and to preserve.
Well, there aren't any final boys, so that's fair.
Yes.
I mean, there are in the M Giallos.
I'm trying to think about it. I can't think of a single final boy.
Well, I mean, Sleepaway Camp maybe.
Can I recommend Dress to Kill by Brian De Palma?
You can always recommend De Palma on this channel.
That is
De Palma
so true.
is De Palma is one of those filmmakers that was very heavily influenced by Giallo. Clearly, he was very heavily influenced by Alfred Hitchcock, who has ties to Giallo. And it all just comes full circle. That's why I mean, the one word like I can describe Giallo is like divisive, because you can just look at, you can be like, oh, well, Hitchcock, like Rear Window, is Rear Window's Giallo, or anything by De Palma, that's Giallo. Like it really just depends. It's eye of the beholder.
I love Brian De Palma, so good pull.
Yeah, me too. Yeah,
good pull. I wanted to say that was a very hardened discussion about the rather nefarious nature of some of these Giallo films, and of course we would not have been able to complete that discussion without Dianna here. She's so much smarter in this topic than myself or Shay, and usually Shay's the smartest one in the room.
I don't know. I don't know about that.
I mean, when Don was here, yes. I love you.
Dang,
Don.
I hope Don's here right now.
Love you, Don. Mean it. But I wanted to thank Dianna for joining us here this month on our podcast. And then if people wanted to follow you all over the internet or listen to your podcast, where could they do that?
Of course. You can follow the podcast on Twitter and Instagram at Giallo Club, Giallo, Giallo Club. My podcast is available literally wherever you stream podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts. It's available everywhere. And I also take listener suggestions. So like if there's a film that I mentioned on this episode and you're like, oh, well, if you like that one, you would like this one, email me. All the information's on Instagram. You just click a little email. And then if you want to follow myself personally, I'm on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd at Dianna NK, DIANNANK. But I am so happy to be here. My podcast is in the third year, and I've been lucky enough to have like such opportunities as interviewing Claudio Simonetti from Goblin. I interviewed James Wan about Malignant, and I am so excited to share this episode with my listeners as well.
We're really happy to have you here. I'm ecstatic. Shay, where can they find you and all of your insanity if they need to follow you?
Hi, everyone. So you may know me from Film Snob Reviews, but if you don't also already know, I am a comic book artist, and I have some new books, new projects coming out. You might also see my work in various album covers for underground bands or whatever, but you can see my work on my TikTok. Please don't look it up. It's embarrassing, but I'm catching a little virality, so if you want to catch that. But most of my stuff is on my art Instagram, so it's going to be Limina, so like liminal but without the L, so Limina_1999. And yeah, don't talk to me. Thanks.
She also has a Facebook. Don't follow her there.
Don't follow me on Facebook.
Yeah, really don't do it. And of course, William here with Film Snob Reviews, the head snob in charge, you know, the big honcho, El Jefe, as I'm affectionately known. You can find me everywhere. That's Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitch, because I do like me some video games at Film Snob Reviews. And then if you want to follow my personal, which don't do it, it's Will, Will, Eguizabal, Eguizabal. That's my actual name. You can't spell it, and you never will be able to. Like I said, I'm so happy this month that we got to talk to Dianna, and that we had a mostly female cast this month for Women's Appreciation Month, International Women's Appreciation Month, and this is on the post day after International Women's Day, which was a few days ago. Thank you guys so much for joining me once again, and for Film Snob Reviews, it's William, and we out.